Hello, 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 and welcome to this week's episode of the Bear World Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Jackson. Before we start, I just want to let you know, remind you to be sure to check out Bear World Magazine at www.bearworldmag. If you have not already gone to the magazine and seen some of the great articles that we have every day, every week, then you should definitely go and check that out. Be sure also to subscribe to the Bear World Podcast on whatever streaming services you have, be it Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. Just make sure that you follow the Bear World Podcast. All right, are you listening to us on our podcast listener, which you can find on bearworldmag.com, just to make sure that you never miss an episode, because we have episodes coming out every 2 weeks, and we don't want you to miss any of them. All right. Now, before I get into the rest of the show, I have a very special guest in here with me today. We have Shane Michael, who is our beard and hair care expert, and he's going to be talking to us today about something that a lot of people who are starting to spot a few grays in their hair, like me, like myself,
Like me.
have something that we have been, probably, racking our brains over to figure out if we're going to do something about that, if we're going to try to like make our hair look, not gray or not look like we're getting like old.
Right.
Um, so a
Try.
lot of people decide they want to color their hair, or some people it's not even about the gray. Some people are just like, I want to color my hair like blue or like rainbow colors for Pride or something like that.
Right.
And but Shane is here to talk to us a little bit about hair coloring, beard and hair coloring. So Shane, just to give us a little bit of like just to start us off a little bit, what are your thoughts? What are your personal thoughts on beard and hair coloring?
Well, I feel like well, first of all, thanks for having me on.
Yes,
I
no
really
problem.
appreciate the platform. Um, one of the things that I don't mind is if you're coloring your hair, I don't mind that you're coloring your hair as a professional myself. I think that going to professionals is the thing that you should do. That way you can get as close to your natural as possible without overshooting the target. But when it
Hmm.
comes to beards, that's where I get kind of funny with with the coloring, you know. And there's some things you want to ask yourself before you even get into coloring your hair or your beard. And one of the things is, why? Is it
Hmm.
is it vanity's sake? Is it to stay young looking, or is it just for yourself? And for me, I've chose I've chosen a natural look to because I want to keep all the hair I have for as long as I possibly can. And sometimes there's some over processing. The hair color that you do for like Pride with the blues and stuff like that and the glitter beards, I think that's awesome because it's not meant to look like you're gonna walk around like this every day. And if you do, God
Yeah.
bless you. But I feel like when you go into coloring your beard, you it never really grabs the right way. I feel like they say gingers are soulless, but you can call them whatever you want to. But they're the only ones that can get a perfect match from from a box kit or even going to a salon because of the different ranges of colors. But if you have, say, now you know what I look like. I have a full beard and it's silver. But if I went in, if I had gone in and put a black dye on it, because my hair isn't truly black, it would overshoot what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So it would look very artificial. Do you know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah. So that first question that you telling us to ask, which is why am I even considering doing this? Why am I doing this, and who am I doing this for?
Right.
Like let's just use me as an example for just for a second,
Okay.
okay? I'm in my 30s, my early
Okay.
30s, and I'm starting to see some gray hairs popping up in my beard, and
Okay.
it's starting to starting to bother me a little bit. And so like when you ask that question, like why am I considering this beard color, like I guess it's for me it's pretty simple. Like I want to not look old for as long as I possibly can. Not saying that gray
Okay.
hair looks makes people look old,
Oh no,
but
you already
like
said it.
no, no, but it's like it's different though. Like it's different when you have like a full head of gray hair versus like having these patches
Right.
of gray,
Right.
and and I think more than anything, that's what I don't like. Like I
Okay.
don't like the patches, like the patches of gray, because for some reason it just rubs me the wrong way. So what would you say for somebody who was just trying to get rid of those gray patches?
Well, I would say qualify the patches. Like if you have one in on like your left side and then one on the bottom of your chin. They're not very close together. You could probably get away with getting a getting a box color or just for men or something like that,
Okay.
and going and spotting
Spotting,
those,
yeah.
yeah, those
I mean, and that's me.
pieces.
That's literally me. Like I have like these little strands, like here and there, like
Right.
So yeah, so
But
definitely spotting.
doing that, that's all right. But once you get to a point where, say, I am, or you know, if you are more than 20% gray, I feel like me with my beard the way it is, being grayish on the bottom and dark at the root, it me keeping it natural keeps the rest of me looking young and contemporary. Once I put a dye or a color on there, it looks artificial and it makes you look older.
Yeah,
Forget what you heard, anybody else. If they tell you, "Oh my God, you look great," it's not true. I mean, it's cute when you down in the den of some club and the lights are low and everything, but truth be told, when you get in regular light, it looks it looks done. And
yeah,
then when your root starts to grow in, all of a sudden it looks like your beard is floating away from your face. So you also have to ask yourself, do I have the time to dedicate to upkeep? So not a lot of people are Friday night. Let me get my Just for Men and paint it in, or let me get to the salon and get or barbershop and get that Beijing in there and have it done. A lot of people are like, I'm just ready to go, and they head out. So
yeah.
you need to make sure that you yourself have the time to for the upkeep. And a lot of
Okay.
men, I'm telling you, a lot of men look amazing with a silver beard, or
Yeah.
even if it's variegated with like the red and the gray, or the black and the gray, anything like that. It's still really attractive, and at some point
Yeah.
we all have to move into that daddy look,
It's
whether we
crazy
want it or not.
because yeah, it's crazy because like in my mind, when I see a guy with a nice gray beard or something, I'm very much so like, hey, daddy, I'm saying
Right.
like, like I think that looks great, but for some reason, these patches on myself, these little strands, I'm not even gonna say patches because they're not even big patches. These little strands that are coming in, they're
The
starting to
road
bother
cares.
me personally. And so like I don't know what that is, but that's really weird. But I like what you're saying about like, first of all spotting, but also like just being real with yourself, like and not letting people fool you into believing that something looks good that doesn't really look good on you, especially if your beard is floating away from your face.
I mean, come on. It looks like that, anime like Spirited Away or something like that. We don't want that look.
Yeah.
We want something that looks natural. And I mean, as a professional, I'm just saying, 9 times out of 10,
Yeah.
it doesn't look natural. And I have plenty of friends that do it, and I joke with them all the time because they would have maybe brown hair, and then next time you see them, they show up and their beard is black, and I'm like, "Hey, Blackbeard, what's up?" And they're like, "No, it's brown." No, that's pretty much black. Or if they have red hair and they're using the Just for Men to subtly get the gray out, and it does they there isn't really one for redheads. So you go and you see them and you're like, what's different about your hair? And they try and pass it off like nothing. There's nothing different. No, no, no. I know there's something different going on up in there because you were redhead 2 weeks ago and now your hair is dark brown. So, I mean,
Right. So
you got
so
to
what
got to be
so what do
truthful.
right, you got to be truthful. So what do you say about people who want to get the color service, like, and they have questions about whether the service will harm their hair in any way, or will it do any harm to their beard? What do you have to say to those types of questions?
Well, I would say, contact someone in in your barber shop or something like that, somewhere like that, a salon, or I would say a salon. Barbershops do great, but they do. I find that when you go to a barber shop, they don't have a range of colors. They either do like black, and that's
Yeah.
it. So if you go to
Usually
if you
just black, yeah.
right, usually
And
just
jet
black.
black at that.
I mean, like the deepest of jet black, like midnight. So I'm thinking that you would want to go to a salon and talk to a professional. There are plenty of salons with men that work there who are trained well to talk about color and everything, and have yourself a patch test, and that's a patch test is where they just take a little bit of the color and they put it like in the inside of your arm just to make sure
Hmm.
you don't get an allergic reaction to it, and
Okay.
then you want to talk about what your goal is. Whether you want it to be a full saturated color, because full saturated colors have to be formulated properly, so you don't want a medium brown color and then it gets oversaturated and you wind up looking like Blackbeard or
Right.
Captain Jack or Captain Morgan. So you
Cool.
want to get yourself educated on how it can be done properly, and you might get the right person. You become friends, and that Friday night you're like, come on over, we have a glass of wine or something, and maybe you could get in my beard for me. Maybe that could happen. But I always say, go to the professionals. That way you don't wind up with one, facial burns, two, an allergic reaction that in the long run is going to make you have to shave your beard off, and that's going to be even more painful than anything. And I don't mean just painful as in I have to shave my beard, but painful because you now have some kind of rash that you have to take a razor over. So
Okay.
that's a plan that you have to come together with a professional on.
All right, so you hear that? You hear that, Bears? You hear that? People who are experiencing, like a little bit of gray popping in. Go to somebody. If you decide to do the color, go to somebody professional. Go to somebody that knows what they're doing. Don't go to anybody's kitchen.
No, please
Go to
don't.
somebody professional who knows what you're doing, because you don't want to end up with any of these problems
No.
that Shane just discussed on
Yes,
the
yes.
podcast today. So yeah, so just to wrap it up, Shane, I think you gave two tips already. Make sure about what you need to do. But is there anything else that you want to just shout out really quick before we wrap up the whole beard care segment?
Well, one of the things, whether you color your beard or you don't color your beard, at even your hair, make sure that your hair is properly taken care of. Your beard, you want to make sure that it's nice and moisturized. You keep it trimmed regularly so it doesn't split. That, and the color doesn't harm it. Keeps it healthy, emollient, and yeah, I mean that's the most important thing. Taking care of
Right.
it, keeping it moisturized and oiled and everything. Oil it twice a day. I would say once in the morning after you get out of the shower, and then in mid afternoon. Because don't come to my house and put some beard oil on and lay on my pillowcases. We're not gonna have that. So you're not gonna mess up my pillowcases.
All right,
So
great. So no soul glow.
no,
We're
so
not
we
soul
no,
glowing here.
we're not doing no soul glow. Mm-mm. Pillowcases cost coins.
What? Well, thank you so much, Shane, for being here today, for talking to us about this beard care tips and everything that you are so gracious to share with us. Make sure that you check out Shane's website for some of his beard and hair care products at bearessentialhair.com. Make sure you check out Shane's articles. We have about 2 articles coming out every month, beard and hair care articles that Shane actually writes. So make sure that you check out www.bearrollmag so you do not miss out on that. Again, Shane, thank you. Thank you so much, and you have a great day.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
Stay bearded.
Without further ado, I want to get into the bulk of our show today, which we are going to be focusing on a very special birthday. Do you guys know whose birthday it is today? Anybody? No? Okay. Well, today is our birthday, Bearworld Magazine, and we are celebrating a very special, how many years, Richard?
Our editions are 8 years old in September
8
2020.
years. So Bearworld Magazine and Gray Jones Media, we have been around for 8 wonderful berry years.
Long years.
All right.
Something like
And
that, yeah.
So so we just want to talk today. We have our guest here today, who you just heard, Richard Jones, who is the CEO of Bearworld Magazine and co-founder of Gray Jones Media. And we have Robin Gray, who is the co-founder of Gray Jones Media and editor of Bearworld Magazine, the person that kind of like, he's over me. I'm the deputy editor. He's
Yes.
the editor. He's my boss.
The
pretty
only
much
tile that
so.
climbed was on the bottom.
So,
How
how are you guys doing today?
Good. It's great. I mean, I love this technology that we're able to be all in different places in the world and celebrate the magazine's 8th birthday. So happy birthday, us.
Happy birthday, us.
Who's
Yes.
eating sweets?
Absolutely.
Who's eating sweets?
I'm
I can hear
getting
some.
the party started.
Ah, good boy. Good boy.
And look at me. I'm empty-handed. I need to fix
There you
that.
go. And of course, as you say, the technology, the irony, of course, is the American-sounding one is not in America.
Yes, I am not in America. I am currently in London, in the UK with Robin. Well, Robin isn't in London. Robin is in Birmingham. We're not going to talk about that place. That's a shadowy place
Please
that you're
don't.
not supposed to go to.
Whatever.
But Robin has a lot to say about that. But we're going to.
Oh,
That's
You
for a
wait.
different podcast.
That's for a different podcast. And Richard is in New York, where I actually live, which is where I met Richard and started
right.
working with Bearworld Magazine. But we'll get all into that in a second. I guess the first thing I want to start off talking about, because, we need to know, like, how did this thing come about? Like, Richard, you
Yes.
were the creative mind behind Bearworld Magazine. You were the one who thought up this idea. What made you say, aha, I want to do bears, and I want to do a bear magazine, and I want this to be like very berry and all of this good stuff?
Well, in so many good origin stories, it was a complete kind of accident, really. I was working for, I was running my own bridal magazine in Northern Ireland. It didn't last very long, but it was, an interesting journey. But I was also intrinsic in helping get the Northern Ireland gay magazine called NGI now. It was, no, have I said that right? Sorry.
GNI.
GNI, forgive me. Yeah, it's Gay Northern Ireland. I'm so sorry. They were Gay Northern Ireland, then became GNI, which is great. So that's still around, and I helped get the first edition of that off the ground. And then I was, I was never meant to be part of it for a long time. It was just helping get that going. And I was kicking my heels. I wasn't doing anything. And there was a Bear website back in the day, kind of dating. It kind of had news. It was kind of a little bit, probably we'd consider it old fashioned now, but it was kind of like the Bear version of gay.com used to be, I guess, something like that anyway. And they were looking for help. They were looking for help to survive. They had bills to pay, and they were, all those kind of lovely bills you have to fork out to keep a website going. And I pitched them an idea of an online magazine. It would be their magazine, but I just pitched the idea. I never thought I'd end up actually creating one. They loved the idea. I pitched it. We created a front cover mock-up. It was always going to be digital and aimed at their membership. I think they had 20 or 30,000 members, so that was great. There's a readership straight away. But they folded. They folded before they could really save themselves. And my idea, whilst a great one, wasn't going to provide them with a cash cow that they maybe needed. So I was like, well, let's rename it. So it became Bearworld Magazine, and I just grabbed it with both hands and ran at it, and that's how it was born. I began working on it in April 2012. So the project, if you like, was April 2012, with the first edition coming out in September 2012. So we honor the first edition as our birthday. So that's why we're 8 years old in September.
Great. So did you feel like when you were doing this, did you feel at any point also there was like a need for representation in the bear community? Like, did you feel like they weren't being represented? Or
I'd like to say that I really researched it deeply and came up with a thesis and everything else, but I suppose I did. Maybe it was a natural feeling. I was becoming a bear personally. I think I was understanding what it meant to be a bear, and felt like, as I said, that Bear website, it was kind of kicked off of that website into this idea. So I have to thank them, and it's a shame they don't exist anymore, but that's kind of where the idea came out. And then I basically, that April to September was research and development. What's out there, who's out there. I joined every Bear Facebook group. I researched everything I could possibly find out, and I kind of shifted onto a USA timeline. So I was getting up at midday and working till 3 a.m. UK time, just to be on a kind of timeline for the US while I researched, communicated with people. Like Modern Bear were one of the first kind of groups that we talked to, who really supported us early on, who were the, they had written their guide to being a bear and everything else, and they wrote for us for a little while. So people like that were great. Like, nobody turned us away. And I think, the trick was I had a front cover. Like, people believed we existed because we had this digital front cover. And then we just had to do the work of getting it ready. And our first issue was designed like a print magazine. We just kind of had it digitally, kind of on people's screens and cell phones, and you swiped it or fake turned a page over. And that's how our first issue came out. So it was a lot of work. That April to September was a lot of work, and we were very beary then. We were very about plaid and bears and plaid and bears. It was very kind of a bit one note in a way, but that was the beginning point. That was the beginning point, and we've grown and evolved tremendously. But the bear community has as well, and we've kind of followed that, I think, and followed my life as a bear. As I grew into being a bear and understanding it, those changes kind of came about as well. So that's kind of the birth of the idea and the development. Let's say
how it all began. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to go into what was some of the challenges that you faced. Like you said, it was a lot of work from the beginning, but what were some of the challenges that you faced at the beginning, starting it up and running it, and some of the things you may have run into as you were becoming this Bear magazine? What were some of the challenges that arose that you didn't see coming?
That's a good one. I mean, I didn't think we were a big magazine at the beginning. I don't think that was where we were at. I think it was let's just get something done. Let's get it out there. What does that take? And kind of dove in. I think the challenges are like any digital magazine, like getting the content, getting the right content, writing. I wasn't a writer, and don't laugh, team, because I probably still am not technically a writer, but I wasn't trained as a writer.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, I knew what you were thinking.
Robin was probably...
Robin says, thinking, yeah, I know. We all knew. But that was a challenge. I was writing stuff without any real training. We did have an editor working with us who kind of came to us early on and said, look, I've been editing newspapers. I'd love to help you out. It was a kind way of saying your writing's not very good. So thankfully to them, that was a challenge. Like, how do you want to write and create a magazine, but you're not really equipped with the skills. So, again, it became very much a team effort. We had a lot of people come on board to help. Other people were better writers and wrote had written stuff about what their field was, like Modern Bear. They wrote about interiors and all of that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of it's a lot of juggling. I mean, I think the challenges are juggling, and that's the biggest thing. Like, you're juggling your writers, you're juggling the content, what's the feel, the tone of the magazine, getting a photo shoot done for the front cover, or getting people to send pictures in and getting that. I think the biggest challenge was we weren't taken seriously. I think we were treated like a porn magazine at the beginning. And that for me was a tough part of it, because we weren't. We were a lifestyle magazine. We still are. We talk about everything. And
You hear that? You hear that, people out there? We're a lifestyle magazine. We're not porn. Okay. We may put out a little porn every now and then for you, but it's not like that. Okay.
Well, we certainly didn't then. I mean, I think it was tougher to get stuff out back then, and tougher to be taken seriously by advertisers if you had any of that content. I think the world has moved on. The world is more sex positive. So I think today is a very different kind of sphere for that. But yeah, I loved it. I can't, I don't think if there were challenges, I didn't see them as major challenges. I just saw it as, you got to get this done and move it forward.
Great. And I just want to preface what I said about porn. There's absolutely nothing wrong with porn.
Oh,
okay. I love porn. I think we all like porn.
Well, I think, again, it was never about that decision. It was about, we needed, I saw it very much as a business at the beginning. It paid my bills, it paid my bills. And, advertisers were very, very nervous of that back in the day. Again, the world was different. It was only 8 years ago, but the world was very different about LGBT media even then. And I think it's shifted dramatically over the years. And we've enjoyed being part of that, I think.
Great. So, you said, like, during this time, you got like this editor who came and helped you out, but that wasn't Robin, right?
No, this was just this was a traditional text editor. He was going through the articles and making sure the grammar was right, and he helped me form. Like, he said, do you want it to be British grammar or American grammar? And that's a really good question at the beginning. The majority of our readers were American, so we took a decision that the grammar and any of the grammar rules and spelling should all be American. Great advice. Absolutely great advice.
I think that's hilarious considering what's going on right now and the fact that anything that you guys see in Bearworld magazine written in American English, it's probably me. And when you see something written in British English, it's probably Robin or
and if you see anything excellently written by
crap errors, then it's Richard.
I was going to say, well, I'm lucky. You guys edit my work. Like, if you've seen anything excellently written by me, either Robin or Carl has edited it. So, I'm very lucky like that.
It's just really interesting what you said, actually, then, about sort of, because I think I'm okay at writing in American, but even I sort of, because that's been such a learning curve for me since the start when I got on board, was this sort of the need to write it in American English with sort of backward dates and everything else that sort of the colonies have. And I think it's such a difficult sort of thing to like be kind of, it's different enough that you have to really think about it, and you kind of almost become sort of dual language in a way. And it sounds stupid, and I'm being slightly flippant, but I think there's enough difference actually that it really does sort of challenge you to sort of have those two brains.
I think the one that you pick up on, Robin, is the date. If you're talking about a bear event, we've got to put it in the date that the event is in, and most of our events were based in America. That we were writing about. So you've got to. I think you had to. It wasn't that either one is wrong or the better. It's that you've just got to pick one and stick to it. And I think it just felt right when the biggest and most. Well, the biggest bear community is in America, just by numbers, and the biggest amount of bear events. So that led us down that route of, well, we're going to have to pick America, and that's what we did. Having a global audience is great, but you've still got to pick. You've got to pick a standard, and even if you veer away from it, I think the date piece is probably the most critical.
I think that's what you guys are saying, that you didn't realize. You didn't realize. See what I did there? I didn't realize. That, it was Realize. I always tell
love it.
I always tell Glenn, it looks like you're saying realize. What is realize? I don't know what realize is.
I love it.
Let's not get on to aluminium.
But Robin, so Robin,
but it's spelled differently.
But you actually spell it different. I only found that out the other day.
Well, I think I told you that.
I just thought you were backward and couldn't pronounce it properly, but then I realised you actually spell it differently.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah,
But yeah.
it's really weird. So much in common, yet so different.
Exactly.
So Robert, we started
Yes.
talking. You started talking and about what you were doing. So like, let's move into like when you come into the picture now. So like, how long had Bear World been going on before you got involved, and how did you get involved?
So I got involved in 2014, the summer of 2014.
That's right.
Which was in London. Richard was still in the UK at that point, and he was just covering for Bear World, London's first relatively abortive attempt at doing a Bear Week. Which,
Well,
it was pretty good. For the first one was pretty good. The second year was terrible, and then it fell back over again and didn't happen again. But I can go into a big sort of essay about why the British communities don't really get Bear Weeks and Bear Weekends, which incidentally is why we still point the magazine predominantly at an American audience, is because they just get, and I'm doing air quotes, get the bear community a bit more than the UK. But no, so there was that going on. I was working in London full time for a big international charity, and I was semi-working at the bar in London at the time that was the King's Arms, which is the home of the Bears in London, pretty much.
The KA.
The KA, indeed. And hopefully, fingers crossed, as a sidebar, that it actually gets to reopen, because it's still not open again yet. But what was I saying? So I was working on the bar, and Richard was there. We didn't know each other, and we were just sort of... I was helping out with the week as a volunteer. Rich was there writing about it. And I think we just started to have a couple of conversations, and then randomly, we sort of decided to go for a drink at some point. And then it became a sort of a process of shared mutual interest in publishing, I suppose.
I think so. I think I remember us kind of bonding over the it wasn't the King's Arms. What was the other pub?
Duke of Wellington.
The Welly.
No, the other one. What's the one? Oh God, you know what I'm like with names. The one, it's south of the river, just over the river.
Oh, the Eagle. No, RVT.
No, the
RVT. Yeah,
There we
of
go.
course. Yeah, RVT,
That was it.
yeah.
Sorry, it's been a long time. So the RVT, I think, was home to the fashion show, and I think you were
Yes,
helping with that.
yes.
I was there, and I think you and I kind of bonded under realizing what needed to be done. And I think we both, I think I half volunteered because I realized that it's all hands on deck, and that was great. And I think that's how we got to understand that putting events together is tough, and we ended up talking about that. And I think it went from you helping out a little bit on the magazine through to gosh, what was the journey?
Actually, the journey.
Yeah.
I still remember it to this day because it kind of picks up on what I just said about the Brits.
Yeah.
You're at this point, just for people sort of like knowledge, you were still publishing the magazine monthly as an in-app
That's right.
sort of printed in inverted commas again version.
Okay.
So you used to do a monthly, what would be more of a magazine that you actually had to get designed, and it had to look like
that's
a
right.
magazine. And the idea that you had was that you wanted to start a Bear World magazine, UK and Europe. And that's where I got on board, was because you were about to leave. You knew you were leaving and heading off to the States. And I sort of picked up that mantle with the idea that we would get that first one out the door together. But it just became, I think the closest we got, we had a cover, and then it just fell apart.
We did.
Because it just, like I say, there's a whole essay, and I can write it somewhere, as to why Brits don't get Bear Weekends. And I think because there's just not enough to write about. And I think America is such a big country at a time that you have so many different events going on, so many different bear groups around the country. There's always something going on you can write about on a monthly basis. Whereas to try and do Bear World Magazine UK, everyone knows what's happening in the UK. Like we've got 4 major real bear events, and we all go to them. It's like
Yes,
you can't
exactly.
really write anything to inspire someone to come and check
You
out
have
a new bear
4.
weekend.
I didn't even know there were 4. What 4 are there?
There's more than 4, but there's kind of like there's kind of the big 4, which is Manchester Bear Scots, Brighton, and It used to be
Bristol?
Yeah, it used to be Bristol.
Did Bristol have
But
it?
incidentally,
Yeah,
there's also a
Bristol,
Birmingham one. There's also a Glasgow one. There's also blah 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 blah. That is off topic. But yeah, for me, it was kind of like that was kind of the whole point of me being there. But it just became a process very quickly that we realised it just wasn't going to get off the ground.
But I think we had a crucial moment, and I think it was a lot of things that kind of combined at the same time, and that was how we transitioned from having to worry about designing a 100-page magazine, which was stressful. You know, I think people in the magazine world will understand. You know, you get your edition out, and you think, oh, we're done, we've got it out, great. You know, you printed or delivered digitally, whichever, you've done it. Well, you're back on the machine because you've now got a new deadline of another 30 days to get the next one out, and that became very tough in all kinds of ways. And you know, Robin was with us at the time, and it was just before me coming to America, and we went over to a non-designed magazine, to what you see now, what I call a daily news website. It took the pressure off us tremendously. We walked away from the app, which, whilst was lovely, it was costing people to look at the magazine, and that became a barrier. So we were able to transition into a website that it looks a little bit different to what it is now, but pretty much the same kind of idea, is that it's daily news stories putting up. And we didn't have a monthly deadline anymore. It was like, let's get a story out today. Great, done, bosh. And you could respond quicker. You could respond both to the UK stuff, European stuff, American stuff. And that was the big change that I think solidified Bearworld magazine as to what it is. And that, you know, Robin was right there in the middle of that change, and you know, took on the mantle of deputy editor. And I mean, I can't even when was 2015, early 2015 you became the editor full time, something like that.
Or
16.
I'm not taking credit for
remember
all of it, but I think it was definitely me bringing to the table my experience of sort of web building and
Yes.
more sort of mobile friendly kind of stuff that really did start the transition from. I think we had a conversation like, you don't have to do this, you know.
Yeah,
it's like you
yeah.
don't, because it was a time stress, and it was a financial stress. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Oh,
totally.
To keep all these things working, and you were having to pay to design a magazine, which was never actually going to get printed, which I always found just a little bit crazy anyway. So I think as we made that transition, I think it all just started to make more sense.
It did. I think for me, I'd been on my own up until then. You know, I was a decision maker. Everything rested on my shoulders. With having Robin to bounce ideas off, who was very sensible, was great. And I think, you know, that is crucial to the solidifying of what Bearworld magazine is. So, you know, it was a big pivotal moment in the changeover to what you see now. So yeah,
great.
That was. Yeah, so that's where we're at.
Cool. So now Bearworld magazine is this thing that a lot of people know about. I mean, I knew about Bearworld magazine. I think maybe the first article that I ever read from Bearworld magazine, I don't remember what it was, but I do remember reading Bearworld magazine. It was in 2016 maybe. It was the first time that I remember seeing an article.
I could say, yeah. I think Robin had taken over the editorship by then. Okay. But yeah, I mean, because I was upstate New York for a year, living in America with a thought to coming back to the UK, but I ended up staying there for a year, and we ran the magazine, and Robin really stepped up in terms of being deputy editor. And I think when I moved to New York City, it wasn't long before then we kind of moved everything to a different place, and Robin took over the editorship, so we could grow the bigger company that is now beyond Bearworld. But that's kind of how it is. So, I think it showcases that you need a team. I think trying to do things on your own is the tough part of it. You do need a team. You do need people around you that you trust, and I think that's how you can grow and, you know, shape something and listen to ideas. You know, it's great that Robin had ideas that I didn't know about. You know, that it wasn't that I didn't want to do that until you feel that you know that you can, and that sometimes that takes conversations and stuff.
And I think it was part of the journey as well, because I think this definitely started as Richard's labour of love to a community that he loved, and I think that was very much where it all began. And I think for the relatively, and I'm being respectful, for the relatively low number of people that read it, it was very much a community magazine that was enjoyed by a good sort of central core community. But I think as soon as you wanted to transition that beyond a community thing to actually something that is global, and makes money, I think then, yeah, absolutely, you need some staff. You need people to sort of come on and contribute, and there's extra costs about keeping a website running and everything else. So yeah, I think that was the jumping off point, was the probably the subconscious decision making that you had to do, which is like, this is moving now from a labour of love in a community sense into, this is actually more of a thing.
Oh, totally. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we, and I'm saying we because I work here too. I work here, guys. I work at Bear World Magazine, and if you
You're
didn't know that,
you're the
if you didn't know that, I think that we are doing that. I think that we have been getting, like, I mean, our audience is definitely growing. People are definitely noticing us a lot more than even when I started working with you guys, which was just a year ago. And like, just seeing like where we are from where I started in the summer of 2019 to now, it's like, whoa, we have like really grown our audience. Like I can see it, just from looking at the numbers myself.
Absolutely. And I think it's just testament to everyone's involvement. And we'll stop the fan wankery in just a minute. But I think it genuinely is the sort of, like, we are beyond anything I think that any of us probably really predicted. To now definitely being the #1 global bear magazine. There's no two ways about it. And that is something that I'm exceptionally proud of. I know Rich is, as the grandfather. And
you've all done very well.
And yeah, it's a great place to be. And launching a podcast, and it's the next iteration of the process. And I think it's just our next real sort of big step is to go and properly crack Europe and the rest. Sorry, I'm probably going out of sync of your questions, but yeah, that's my sort of that's the next.
Well, step. Yeah. We'll get back to that. But first, let's talk a little bit about, like, so we got this thing going. This you got this machine rolling, Bear World Magazine. When I started, we were under the umbrella of what was Bear World Media, and then we changed that name. We changed that name to Gray Jones Media, which Bear World Magazine is under Gray Jones Media. So how did that change come about? What is Gray Jones Media versus Bear World Media versus Bear World Magazine? What is all of that?
Who's picking? Do you want me to pick that one up, Robin?
Just literally from my side, it's exactly what it says in the tin. Bear World Media Inc. Started to support and run Bear World Magazine. We, a couple of years ago, started to grow beyond that one title and that one demographic, I should say, as well. And certainly from Richard's side, we obviously have other titles in our network now. We've got one for LGBT video gamers, one for senior people over 40. And it was we do. And producing TV and everything else that's not necessarily Beary. And I think that was the jumping off point, was the fact that we are growing. And I think we needed to reflect that. And I know that, Rich, I'll throw to you. There were some very specific operational issues about trying to talk to people about money that's not for bears. And then that comes back to the whole porn thing and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I remember when we created Bear World Media, it was a case of having a conversation going, we're not just Bear World Magazine anymore. What do we call the company? We're going to evolve into this other work, and we came up with Bear World Media because it was an extension of Bear World Magazine. But I think over time, over the last few years, having conversations, as you said, Robin, that with people talking about the company. And when you talk about the company, you mean Bear World and Queer 40 and gaming and the TV shows. But people were seeing a business card that said Bear World Media on it, and they're thinking it's just about bears. And I that's our fault. No one can blame them for thinking that, because our business card said Bear World Media. So we're very proud. I'm very proud of that we create that. Bear World Magazine evolved into Bear World Media. I think that's an amazing thing to have happened. But now we're growing even more, and we felt that we needed to have a name that everything can fall under. So there is no Bear World Media anymore. So that doesn't exist. It's morphed into Gray Jones Media. So Gray Jones Media runs all of the magazines under that banner, the TV show productions, the podcasts, everything. So it's our name. So Robin and I are now co-own and co-run the company. And that's why it's Gray Jones, because I'm Richard Jones and he's Robin Gray. So it's very simple. It's a lot of businessy stuff that really doesn't impact Beowulf Magazine. You know, nothing has changed at Beowulf Magazine in any way. It's just the kind of the corporateness bit that's changed. And I think it allows us to evolve all the different things in their own way. So Beowulf Magazine will always be Beowulf Magazine and the founding father title of the business. But we've gone beyond that. And that allows us to grow and create new stuff. And there'll be new stuff coming and new magazines maybe and lots of TV shows. So it's another transition point. I mean, I think it's the equal transition point to what happened when we went from a digital magazine to a daily news site. We're now at another point of the growth of the company. So that's simple as that.
Right. So yeah, we are definitely growing, and like with that growth comes a lot of other things that you get involved with. So like now we're starting to Richard, you said at the beginning that when we first started, we were very plaid and sort of like all of these things, but now we've branched out. We're hitting different topics, like different parts of the community, because the bear community is so vast. So we're hitting like all these different things. We have like mama bears that we are embracing. We have people, just different types of people. So but with that comes like a lot of challenges of some of the readers who were used to the old thing may not necessarily want to get with the new thing. So how do you feel about that?
I think individuals are individuals, and what they like and don't like is a tough thing to do. But I think what I like about Beowulf Magazine and its trajectory is it's reflected the growth of me. Like in the early years, it was the growth of me, like who was as a bear and how I discovered things. So, the very beginning, when you're discovering you're a bear, you're all about, the plaid shirt and going to P-Town Bear Week. But I evolved. And then I think, as the team's grown, as the world's grown, as the LGBT community in itself has, it's not that it's become diverse. I think it's more visibility. So, we now, I don't want to say there were no lesbian bears when we found the magazine. I just didn't know they existed.
Exactly.
So it doesn't mean they weren't there, but it wasn't in my reference. So I'm thrilled that, 8 years later, there are now lesbian bear title holders and doing great work. And they've been around, I know that we had Nikki on the show. Mm-hmm. I think was it the last episode?
Yes.
And, all of the work that she's done, she's been intrinsic in helping the gay male community in her sphere of life. So why shouldn't we honor her? And I think that we're even, as men, we probably have sisters. We definitely have mothers, so again, cutting women out of our life, I think, or cutting them out of our form of reference and writing about them, I think would be wrong. Nikki and the associated other female bear groups belong in our gang, and I think that's fine. Why not have them in the gang? They're not trying to do anything or change anything. They just want to be in our gang. And I think if you have a group of people who want to work with you and be your brothers and sisters, I don't see why you would turn that away. Exactly. That's my feeling. And I think the evolvement of that is, it might not have happened on day one at Beowulf Magazine, but I'm really glad that, years down the line that it is, because of the journey of the magazine itself.
Yeah.
And the community itself, that it reflects the community.
I think, I'm going to echo all of what Richard just said. I think the bear community, rightly or wrongly, and it's does come in for a lot of criticism about its openness to different aspects. And I think definitely it moving in time is really important, and being able to reflect what is going on in the present day is also really important. And so for me, I think when I took over, I was adamant that we would not only be a bear magazine, we would be a diverse bear magazine. And I know that is something that Richard obviously started out at, but I think we're both on the same page with that.
Yeah.
And for me, it just, I think this constant sort of like need to keep looking at ourselves, keep changing, keep reflecting, and I think the best form of producing your best work is to be critical of yourself. And I think we can always sit there and say, well, I'm super proud that we're actually having conversations on Bear Magazine about trans bears, about mum bears, about different kinds of sort of like different backgrounds, different races, different locations, different markets are starting to open up now in India, etc. And I think that's, if you stand still, you die in the media world, basically.
Yeah, totally.
And I think the idea that we can keep moving, keep adapting, and keep it going fresh. And you know what? And I've always said this: if it screws a few people around, great. And if it stops you and makes you think, even better. And if it sort of digs out a few racists, okay, bye. Like I don't really want you reading Bell magazine anyway. So realistically, for me, it's like I keep it coming. Like keep flying every single flag you can find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I love that what you said. Like, if you stop moving, you stop growing, you die. Like seriously, people really need to open themselves up to new possibilities, new ideas, new things, and embrace it. And you never know what you might find out about yourself. So that's what I say.
Totally. And I think, even if you take away what the magazine is, but as a magazine, if you look at the magazines that have died over the years, LGBT or otherwise, it's because they didn't move forward.
Yeah, they refuse
so I
to
think,
grow.
Yeah, and I think, if you're running a magazine and what that means is your connection to a community, and it was founded on a community, but any magazine is only as strong as its readership, so that's its community anyway, whether it's for profit or not. You've got to reflect what that community is. And whether we write about lesbian bears or not, they're still there. Just because if we'd chosen not to write about them, it doesn't mean they're not there and part of the community. So why would you not want to write about that? And I think that's, and I think that takes growth. I think if you were interviewing me on day one, I wouldn't know what to talk about in terms of all of these matters. It just wasn't in my frame of reference. But I learned, I took that period of time to learn about the community, and I'm still learning, have always been learning, and to this day, I'm still learning about the bear community. And I think that's where you have to keep an open mind and have to decide that you're always learning and take fresh ideas. And the different kinds of bears, if you like, that exist now and that I've met over the years is phenomenally diverse, much more diverse than day one. And I like that. I like that growth. So yeah, sorry.
Great. Okay. So now that we have evolved we're evolving into this new iteration of Bear World and what being a bear and what all this means. Where do you see this going? Where do you see Bear World Magazine or the rest or the company Gray Jones Media in the next 5 or 10 years?
That's two big questions, so I don't know.
I'm sorry.
There's a massive question.
Go on.
Let me take the Where's Bear World Magazine going
Yes.
as the editor. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's new territories. It's new frontiers. For me, sort of, and I mean new frontiers geographically. So I really, really, really want to push into Europe. And we've always been in Europe. I live in Europe, and it's been Bear World Magazine being run out of Europe for the last however many years. But I think I really do want to make sure that this is starting to spread our wings in terms of it is a global magazine. I think a lot of us see us still as a very American magazine, and not just Europe. I want to get into Australia. I want to get into South Africa. I want to get into India. All these markets there are bear groups there. There are bears doing beary things. And we need to be there writing about it. And I think the second point of where Bear Magazine is going is similar to a lot of our other titles, is that it is going to have what we're calling quite corporately our localization strategy, which basically is the fact that over time, wherever you are in the world, when you're reading Bear Magazine, due to technical wizardry that has yet to be implemented, it will look like you're reading Bear World Magazine Australia or Bear World Magazine Europe or Bear World Magazine India or whatever, because it will float those more local stories into your eye line a little bit quicker. And I think that to me is really exciting because it's replacing maybe some of these areas magazines, their local magazines that are sadly failing because they're not adapting. And I think that to me is like, not only is exciting from a point of view of being able to sort of showcase bears from around the world, I think it's also exciting because we are finally sort of living up to our claim, which is about being a global bear magazine. That pretty much is that. I mean, New Frontiers to me as well, by the way, is still pushing the envelope on defining a bear. Like, I don't just want to write about an article about a trans bear and go, well, that's that then, because there are 1,001 different amazing combinations of the trans community. And so,
yeah, and different experiences.
Exactly. And we should be telling all these stories and helping people sort of discover themselves through the magazine. And look, I sort of tell this story very occasionally, and I didn't believe him at first, but then when I sort of kept talking to him, actually I started to believe it because I knew what he was talking about. But I was working on a bar in London, and this rather attractive Asian guy came in and we got chatting, and it turns out that he read Beowulf magazine, and I said, well, I'm the editor, and he's like, your magazine actually helped me not only come out but realise that I belonged in the bear community, and that just hit me like a truck. And that to me is kind of my sort of jump. And like I say, he was from I'm going to butcher this. I think he was from Japan. I don't honestly know, and I apologise to everyone involved in that statement. But for me, it was like, these are the stories. These are the people that we need to start getting into. These are the people that we need to sort of start bringing it into the fold. And if that was one person, we've got, I'm going to get this wrong, I should have looked it up, I think we've got about 50,000 readers a month. Who of those readers are sort of exploring their sexuality, exploring their life, exploring their kind of bear identity, and how many more people could we help assist on their discovery?
Yeah,
Robin, I think that's amazing, and I think in the darkest times of when when you're running a business, there are tough days, there are tough times, and you're like, well, I'm just going to throw the towel in. This is too hard. And then it was always those weeks that you'd get the email from some 21-year-old cub who didn't look like his friends at school or college, who went, thank you for making me feel attractive or feeling worthy, and you like, right, I'm keeping, and it's amazing. It's really amazing that you get that people take the time to say that. For one thing, because I don't know, that's amazing to get that kind of email. But it's amazing how powerful, and I want to thank those people who, I don't know who they all are anymore, but those people who took the trouble to write to us with any encouragement, actually, anything, especially those people that, we helped, but there's been some lovely emails about why we, who thanked us for existing. And it really, and I think that's because we're an LGBT magazine. I think that's because it's an LGBT community, and we still have these struggles and still are fighting to be considered worthy in all aspects. And and that's, I think the underpinning of the ethos of why we're a company now and not just one magazine is that ethos of reflecting the fuller LGBTQ community. So it's interesting. Rob and I have both got those kinds of emails along the journey.
I mean, even in my short time with you guys, I've gotten some good
Wonderful
messages. I've gotten people. I mean, and I don't always say anything because, like, a lot of the times, like, it's during the day when I'm like working and stuff. But but I've had people message me. I've had people message me on other apps and stuff to say, "Oh, I recognize you from." Bear World magazine. I've read your articles.
Other apps.
Other apps, yeah.
Yes. Wink.
I've read your articles, and
I think he means LinkedIn.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
LinkedIn, yeah.
LinkedIn. The same place that I met Bear World magazine is LinkedIn.
True. There you go. If that's what we're calling it.
If that's what we're calling it. If that's what we're calling it now. But yeah, I've gotten those messages, so it's great to know that we're reaching the people that we set out to reach, basically.
Yeah.
Just me coming in, as a bear of color, and sort of like bringing that difference to the dynamic and just like in being accepted with doing that, being accepted and like being welcome, being, you guys extending the welcome to me to, sort of like bring the rest of the community in, or like do things that that you weren't sure that you could do that I possibly could do, so I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Well, we appreciate you. So there you go. You're a great member of the team.
Aw. I promise you we're like Robin said earlier, we're not winking each other off. It's just
Now that would be a trick from all the distances that we're at.
Yeah.
There we go.
that would be a great actual trick to
And well,
Moving on.
moving on. Well, you asked about the growth of the Grey Jones part, and I mean that's a.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I will touch on it, but it's probably a whole other podcast. But when we position ourselves now as as a bold LGBT media company that are filling the gap in the niches within the LGBT world. We've learned a lot of lessons from Bear World, from Queer 40, from gaming, of those within the LGBT community that are also feeling kind of a little bit outside the mainstream LGBT community, for instance. So that's the growth of the company, and that growth is into really stretching the magazines that we already have, maybe founding new ones but working with people that belong to those communities that magazine might serve. We want to look at lots of diverse television production. We have a relationship with Here TV, and we're working with them to develop new content, some of which is coming later this year. So keep your ears pinned back for that. But that's very much our journey is wrapping up the reach into the world, reach into that LGBT audience that is bigger and bigger and bigger. That we're able to meet in terms of it being bigger audience. And without, I don't want to go into too much detail because it'll sound like a corporate promotional video, but there's a lot coming. That's why we formed the company the way it is. Every part of what we do is very strong in its niches, and that's kind of the ethos going forward. Reaching those people that don't feel they belong at the moment, and servicing that, helping people create as well. Like, it's not just us telling stories; it's actually encouraging people to maybe create their own magazine under our banner, or create their own TV show, or write something, and we can facilitate that. And our goal is for that to be as diverse as possible in all of what the word diverse means.
Yeah.
So that's the growth of Grey Jones Media.
Great.
In our plans. So yeah.
Cool. Well, that's kind of, what I wanted to end that on, like a little bit of a, what do you call it? Ellipses, ... Stay tuned for more,
Indeed.
just so guys, if you haven't, checked out Bearwolf, if this is your first time ever listening to a podcast or whatever, and you have never checked out the magazine, please check out Bearwolf Magazine at www.bearwolfmag.com. Please make sure you subscribe to our podcasts. It's just so you don't miss an episode. We have episodes, like I said, coming out every 2 weeks, so make sure that you are tuned in and listening, and you're getting all of the information that you need to get. Also follow us on social media at Bearworld Mag. That's on Twitter, Instagram, all that. All right, make sure you check us out. And I want to thank my guests, my boys, my crew, my team for being here today. Bearworld Magazine, our Bearworld team, Robin and Richard and Robin, however you want to put it, whoever comes first, whenever it comes out of my mouth, that's who comes first.
And also, Kyle, really big thanks to you and credit to you for everything you do as well for us. So,
thank you.
That's the one nice thing I say every week. That's
his emotion.
That's my emotional level used for the week. So I'm glad you appreciate I spent that on you.
Well, I have the secret is as far as what I heard. The secret is to make sure you give them a little what do you call it?
Cocaine.
A little juice, a little what do you call it? I'm looking for the word. I can't think of it, but it's.
Is it a British word?
No, it's not a British word. It's something we say in America, and I can't think of it right now. A little, but you give them a little something to drink, basically, and Robin will give you millions of hugs and kisses and tell you how great you are.
You mean an alcoholic beverage to young Mr. Robin?
And then Richard
he's
will fall asleep on a sofa.
I know. I get. Oh, he pulls that one out all the time. But I was actually remembering that the other day, falling asleep
On the job
with-
as well. We were
and talking to a famous person. Oh, it's
an official Bear World magazine thing at the London Eagle.
And you,
I'd come down after a shift at the pub. You were meant to be doing the first half of the shift at the RVT, and then I said, "Right, I'll meet you then. We'll go."
did.
We'll go to the, yeah, just.
It was
Then
great.
we'll go to the Eagle, and then we'll do that bit of business, and then that's that sorted. Job done. I get to the RVT, and Richard is clinging on to a lamppost for dear life outside.
Yes.
And from that moment onwards, I'm like, okay, so I've got this bit then. Get to the Eagle, drop him off on a bonquette. And that was just him done for the night. Just lay there in a club.
This is why we need a young team helming Bear World magazine. So here we go. Like I said, you've all done very well.
But
there
yeah,
you go.
great guys. Thank you for being here. You guys, this is how our meetings go. Go, guys. So this is what we always say goodbye about 3 times before we actually say goodbye. So we're on number 2 right now. So
Okay. Let's do it.
So
Goodbye.
guys, thank you for being here. Thank you guys for listening. Tune in the next time on the Bear World Podcast. See you all later.